4 o'clock hour starts with Jon Cooper, Ourlad's guide to the NFL draft. The draft, of course, is now just 2.5 weeks away. NFL draft with the number 1 pick with Carolina because of the trade with Chicago. Jon Cooper joins us on 365 Sports. So we had the story, I guess, a day or two ago. Jalen Carter, great player at Georgia, has a little baggage, but that Drew Rosenhaus's agent mentioned they were not going to visit schools or teams, franchises that did not have a top 10 pick. Is that normal?
Well, I've never heard of that before, but hey, nothing surprises me anymore.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true, John. What have you seen as the moving and shaking in this draft as we're starting to probably wind up pro days all together here? Who's maybe dipped in your estimation and who's starting to creep up?
Well, I haven't really noticed anybody that's dipped, other than Carter, being the potential, problems. The teams are kind of trying to figure out, okay, is he worth a top 10 pick based on a couple of incidents? And, to my way of thinking, he probably will still go in the top 10 unless something shows up down the line, something in that security report they get the week before the week of the draft. If something shows up that is unexpected. Other than that, I think he's going to go in the top 10. The guy that just today had a phenomenal 40 time in his pro day, Devin Witherspoon, who, there was some question on his speed. He didn't run at the combine, didn't run at the earlier Illinois pro day. And today he put up a really good time. And so we weren't anticipating that time being that good, to be honest, 4.42. Now, sometimes you got to be careful with pro days. It's not like the combine. But that's a good time for him, and I think that solidifies him as a potential top 10 pick.
John, in your experience, how valuable are pro days? How much stock do you typically or would teams typically put into those?
Well, I think it depends. There's guys that really, really love analytics, and, they want to see the 40 time. I mean, we even have an analytics formula that throws everything in there. 40 time shuttle, everything, wingspan, arm, and we come up with a ranking based on that. I have no idea what goes into that formula that does that. It's a guy who's been doing it for a while. And the thing I've found with a lot of that stuff is they're pretty good at predicting failure, or better at predicting failure when you don't have the numbers, the measurables, but they're not as good at predicting success. I've seen guys that have, what we call combine kings, that when push comes to shove, they don't play very well. And, and it's rare, but you do see some of those guys that are very low on the rating scale in terms of the analytics, the numbers and things of that nature that still perform well. My favorite is Malcolm Rodriguez last year. I just watched the kid on tape, and that's what I go by. This kid can play. He's a phenomenal football player. I thought he was maybe one of the top 2 or 3 linebackers in the draft last year. And I got talked into moving him down a little bit on my board. I had him in the 3rd round, and he went in the 6th, and I got a call for a friend of mine who does radio for head football coach in the NFL. Says, Coop, we were right. Detroit got a steal. He says, in the 6th round, they got a steal. Short arms, too short, but the kid can play. And I think he proved that out this year with Detroit. He's probably one of the top 2 or 3 inside linebackers in the rookie linebackers in the NFL.
John, a lot of teams, a couple teams have 2 first-round picks this year. Houston, Seattle, Detroit, all multiple first-round picks. Philadelphia. Who do you expect to see move and shake on that end of it and try to do something, maybe package and move, or be able to trade down and make some maybe interesting things happen?
Well, you just go to the very top, not the top, but the 3rd pick in the draft with Arizona. I got to believe that some of these teams that really badly want a quarterback are going to be going at Arizona to try to get that pick. And again, I don't know who that would be. People are, kind of sly about that. They throw things out and there's all kinds of rumors. Is Atlanta looking to trade up? Is Atlanta concerned? Do they want to quarterback one of these guys? Is Tennessee interested in that? Would Tennessee trade with Chicago if for somebody like, for example, Levis slips down that far? Chicago may be looking to move down again. Seattle's got a pick that could be attractive, as does Detroit. So yeah, there could be, all kinds of things. There's talk that Tennessee wants to move. There's talk that, Houston, might want to trade down with 12. I think Houston's pretty settled on drafting a quarterback at 2. I think there's some stuff out there that maybe that's not the case. And, I remember former general manager Bill Tobin once telling me, listen to everything, believe half of it, maybe a third.
John, how do you feel about Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee?
I really like him. I've watched a lot of film on him because I've studied the defensive backs that he's played against. And you get a chance to look at the end zone view and look at what he's looking at as a quarterback for 2 quarters of each game I look at. And I'll tell you what, he can read coverages. He can get the ball out in a hurry. And I really like him. I honestly believe if he did not have that ACL, he might be in the conversation for one of these, maybe 3, 4, 5 in the top. He'd be in the top 5. Well, he's in the top 5 already in my mind, but he might be number 2, 3, or 4. He could be in that conversation. But I think that ACL is going to give people some pause. And how soon is he going to be ready to play? But don't sleep on him because somebody may still jump up and take him in the first round, maybe late.
So other than quarterback, what other position has the most what you would consider, especially in the first round, runs on that position based on people maybe being a little bit concerned someone else may not be available?
Well, I think offensive tackle is a position that has some really good talent at the top, maybe 6 guys. And after that, there's a pretty good drop-off, at least on our board, in terms of the talent level. Not that those guys aren't good, but, if you want somebody to come in and help you right away, you might want to get one of those 6 guys that we're thinking about. Obviously Skoronski and Johnson from Ohio State, are the guys that people are talking about. Jones from Georgia. Moving on down, you've got Harrison from Oklahoma. So, you've got a pretty good, group of guys, DeJuan Jones from Ohio State, Bergeron, Syracuse. So there's where I could see a run that some of those guys, teams that want to get one, all the way through the run. I don't think the tackles are necessarily going to start until about 9 or 10, maybe even 11, but then you could see something. I think, the edge rushers, there's a lot of talent in this draft, and there's a lot of depth. So you might see a team that thinks that corner isn't as strong. You might see those 2 corners, Gonzalez and Witherspoon, you might see them in the top 10. For Will Anderson, the edge rushers start to go off after that. Guys like Murphy, Tyree Wilson, Van Ness from Iowa, Nolan Smith from Georgia. There could be a pretty good run right there. But I think you might see a team look at another need if the talent's equal because there's edge rushers that they can get throughout the draft.
John, what do you think happens pick-wise with Aaron Rodgers eventually going to the Jets, which appears that train's on the tracks?
Well, I think what I'm hearing, and again, it's probably the same thing you're hearing, is that the Jets are going to give them their second-round pick, and there's going to be a conditional pick next year. I've heard that the sticking point is what the conditions are on that pick. And, I've heard different things. The criteria, does Rodgers go to the Pro Bowl? Does Rodgers lead him to a Super Bowl? The pick gets better if some of those criteria is met. And what I've heard, and again, I don't know 100% sure, that the sticking point is what is the criteria and what's the conditions that are going to be placed on that pick as to how high it is.
John, Texas has a good number of prospects. Obviously, Bijan's getting a lot of attention, but I was curious about DeMarvion Overshown, linebacker, kind of a hybrid guy, very long and athletic, and seems like he would be a pretty ideal fit for this day and age of defensive players. Just what are your views on him, and how do you think NFL teams are viewing him at the moment?
Well, I like him a lot. I think he's a solid cover linebacker. I think that's one of his biggest strengths is he can play in space. He's got good height, so he can get it. He does a really nice job in coverage. I think he's a little bit, as far as on the lanky side, and he's not real. He doesn't have a lot of bulk, going into him. So as far as standing in there inside and taking people on, that's not right now a strength of his. He's a chase player and a good cover player. I see him as kind of in a 4-3, a will type, or even in a 3-4 under front, over-under type defense where he's going to play, in a more of a will linebacker in that kind of a scheme. Because, you get your 4-3 under and 3-4. They're very similar in terms of how they play these guys. And so I see him as a fit there. He's got, he's almost 6'3", and his cover skills are outstanding. So that's what people are looking for. So, he's going to be one of the top inside backers, somewhere between the second and third round.
How often does someone like a Micah Parsons type player come along during an NFL draft year?
I haven't seen too many. The thing that's unique about Micah Parsons is he not only is he a good inside off the ball linebacker, but he can line up on the edge and rush the passer. And that's obviously you can use him in so many different ways. And there aren't many guys like him, although there is a guy that, people are touting as maybe a poor man's, I don't know if that's the right word, of Micah Parsons, Drew Sanders from Arkansas, who's, a big, tall, lanky inside linebacker who's kind of still learning that position as an off-the-ball backer. But he had a great year for Arkansas. And, he was an edge rusher in a rotation at Alabama. He didn't see a lot of snaps for Alabama with all the talent they have. But he certainly has that talent. I don't put him in the same category as Micah Parsons, but I think he's a solid player that, some people are talking about him as a first-round pick. But I'd say for sure he's going to be in the upper second round.
All right, John, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Jon Cooper, Ourlad's Guide to the NFL Draft, Ourlad Scouting Services, with us on Wednesdays. And by the way, John mentioned last week on the show and also confirmed it again last night that we'll have him up all the way up until the draft, the week of the draft on Wednesdays in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll have